to see you, LA.
Good to see you, sir.
Man, you're going to have some fun in Branson, I hear tell.
You know, Branson's going to be amazing. Probably a sold-out crowd, 3,000 people that are eager to listen to the whole UFO phenomenon, which is ongoing and is about to be revealed. You know, I've been banging this drum for like over, 30 years. I've been studying UFO since I was a kid. I saw one when I was about 12 or 13, which really changed my life in some ways. Yeah, I mean, I'm all down on this. My presentation will have a lot of old stuff because there's people who have never seen it. For instance, when we took out the implant from patient 17, not too many people have actually seen that. So I've got stills and I'll be showing that. But there's also a lot of new stuff. A lot of stuff comes across my desk. People will send me videos, pictures, whatever. And so I've embedded those in the presentation. I'm really anxious to just meet the folks, see everybody, and of course present our findings.
Wow, man! I'll tell you what, you have been bringing it continually. You talk about 30 years. You have been bringing it for a long time. Your name, of course, is synonymous with elongated skulls. Hey, you don't got any of them? You don't got any of them stored in the house? Oh, hey, here comes something. Look at that. Here we go. Oh man, let me zoom in.
You just had to bring that up, didn't you?
Yeah, I did. You know it's coming. I tell you what, he looked good with a hat, like a hat.
Now, what's amazing, and I don't want to get too much into this, but if you think you can cranial deform that, let me just show you the one thing since we're on it.
Sure.
Because the new film I'm working on is I've circled back and working on all the DNA. And it's important because other people are trying to say that it's this and that. It's our team that went down there. We did the 58 samples. There's no other team on the planet that's done that. So I'm kind of like, pushing back, and it'll be out probably in November. This is a normal human skull. All right, let's look at this. It has a sagittal suture, which is right there. You can see it right there.
Yeah.
Sagittal crest. And also look where the position of the foramen magnum is. The foramen magnum is the brain, is the connection between the spinal column right there. Okay, look how far back it is. It's in the center of a skull. See that?
Yeah.
Now watch this. And I don't want to belabor this, but since you brought it up.
Of course, I did.
First of all, there's no sagittal suture on the skull.
Where is it?
Completely void. And look where the foramen magnum is. It's as far back as you can get it to the skull. This, in our opinion, and we've got medical doctors that have come on the record, you cannot bind a child's head to make it look like this. It's genetic. And if it's genetic, we're into a whole different ball game here. Whole different ball game. And that's what we're holding to.
Now, LA, do you think that the size of the cranium there, that they had a larger brain than present day humans?
Yeah, we covered that in one of our watchers. We actually did that with Judd Burton the first time we were down there. And several of the skulls have between 25 and 30% greater cranial capacity than a normal skull. And that's the work of, Brian Forrester was the one that sort of led us into that. But, Aaron Judkins and Judd Burton, they were our two archaeologists for the first trips that we made. And it was Judd Burton who did the measurements on that. I assisted along with Brian Forrester, and we were kind of blown away because the Paracas skulls had about 25 to 30% or even larger cranial capacity. So while you can you can deform someone's head, you can cradle board it, you can't create a bigger cavity. That doesn't work that way. Right. So it's very, very interesting in that respect.
So did the changes occur externally, say from somewhere else, another dimension? Did they occur internally?
My hypothesis has been that these are remnants of the Nephilim tribes that fled the Levant, fled the Promised Land 3,500 years ago. What's interesting is that the Paracas people show up on the shores of Paracas about 3,500 years ago. So it's, does that mean they're from the Levant? No, not necessarily, but there's something going on there. And then with all the DNA evidence that we've done, and this is why I've got to do this film, because it's important. It slipped under the radar. And I've got to hammer this home. And people need to understand that, no, it's not contaminated, because if it was contaminated, then why didn't we get nuclear DNA? There was no nuclear DNA found in anything, because it's very old DNA. We went through the ringer to make this the protocols. We've got film of it. We're dressed in full lab suits. I mean, people who know about this stuff looked at it and said, wow, you guys went the extra mile. And we did go the extra mile. The bottom line is that DNA evidence points to a Middle Eastern or a European haplogroup origin from the maternal side of the family that rewrites history. People don't like me to say that because they don't like the evidence, because it doesn't fit their paradigm. I'm not making this up. We have 3 different labs that looked at this stuff and gave us what it was. That, they have no dog in the hunt. They're just, here's the sample. They have no idea where the sample's from, what it is, what my hypothesis is. They could care less. They're giving me the data. That's all they're doing. Giving me the wrong data. I had one guy today, I posted a thing about this on my YouTube channel, and the guy goes, LA, this is old news. You need to get a bona fide geneticist behind you telling you this. Well, we've already done all that. It's not old news. It's that you haven't been paying attention. Otherwise, you would have known. That's why I'm redoing this whole DNA thing, because it really needs to come out. Because the History Channel and Drudge Report last week or 2 weeks ago had this whole thing on elongated skulls, and that's why, it's not all cranial deformation. It's not all cranial headboarding. You can't get this. You just can't get this from this guy over here, in my opinion.
No,
you just can't do it.
No, I don't see how you can get that. It's 2 different entities of the sort. But let me ask something
different.
And I'll tell you what, that looks a lot like a bug-eyed alien here, man. So here, I think I got like this guy here, right here. Okay, kind of looks like that.
There you go. I like your reflection. It's great.
Well, he's looking at me, man. He knows who I am.
Let me tell you something. Let me throw something at you. I was down in Peru a couple of months ago with this archaeologist, and I haven't done this yet. If there are any optometrists who are watching this program, please shoot me an email, la@Marzulli. And the reason for that is, look at the eyes. We went down, and the Paracas people apparently, and this is where it gets really weird, the Paracas people lived underground.
Whoa.
Yeah. And they burrowed down. Their structures were way under the earth, and they took whalebone and created these huts above earth and then mounded up with dirt. They were like little like about 2 feet by 2 feet, very small, because these were not giants, okay? These entities are not giants. They're something different.
Oh.
And they would go down and live in these hovels, in these underground burrows. So I asked the archaeologist, have you found evidence of torches? How did they get the light down there to see? You know what he said?
Okay.
No, we have not found that. And then immediately went to look at the eye sockets. Look at the eye sockets. What if these things were, first of all, nocturnal, right?
Right.
I mean, we are looking at something that's off the charts, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Totally off the charts.
Absolutely. Well, let me ask you, LA, did humans and these things work together? Did they exist together, or were they different?
I have no idea. I just think that we've seen sites. There's one place called Camacho where it's probably no longer there because the squatters have come in and they just stake out the land and they'll just ruin the site. The site was on top of a high place, and Senior Juan Navarro took us there years ago. And it's actually in my book, On the Trail of a Nephilim, which you showed. It's a killing field is what it was. And every single skull that was elongated had a blunt force trauma to the left side of the head. So the left side of the head was shattered, whole, fractured, whatever. And it was a killing field. They just lined these people up and clubbed them all to death.
Wow.
The question is why? And we think that this was the end of the so-called Paracas culture because they just disappear. Daniel, they just disappear. No one knows what happens to them. There's no written language. There's nothing. They just disappear. And all of a sudden, all the elongation goes away. Very, very interesting.
Wow. Yeah, just went away. But
Yeah.
no, there are insects and nocturnal animals that seem to have enlarged eye sockets too.
Yeah, and this is why I find, you know, these skulls incredibly enigmatic, and this is why I'm on the trail. I'm probably going to make what I'm looking for is an optometrist to volunteer, because that way it doesn't get weird with me calling up someone and going, "Hi, this might sound really unusual," and usually it takes, well, I'm willing to pay for the visit, but it's something odd. So anyway, that's what we're looking for.
Whenever you say a little weird, I want to say a little weirder because you know some of this stuff is weird, man. I mean, weird is like the baseline we got going here. But so something caused them to sort of fade out, and I'm always interested in that. What happens to these civilizations where there's conflict, wars, where there's like the India history shows evidence of glass in a desert where maybe a nuclear explosion hit, or was there an intergalactic war?
Well, I don't think
that's a trail I'm on.
Look, when you say intergalactic, I would say yes. This whole deal between the fallen angels and the good angels, this war has been going on, and we know from the biblical prophetic narrative that it continues. And eventually, Michael and his angels fight with Satan and his angels, and I call it the Great Eviction. And Michael boots them all out of the second heaven. And guess what? They come to Earth. That's where they wind up. They come here. Woe to the inhabitants on planet Earth. So something is coming. That's future. But something is coming. And I would posit that when that happens, that is the Great Deception.
Yeah.
That changes everything.
Yeah, of course, there's a lot of people who are going to say our makers have returned. Those entities that spliced the genes of their culture with Cro-Magnon and created the human race. So they're going to say this is the piece that we never could find in the earth. The missing link. The Lucy's is between Lucy and Elmer. So I'm not going for it.
Well, that's you're very astute, because that's exactly what they're going to say. The neo-Darwinists are looking for that link. They realize that this just didn't happen. It had to have been created somewhere, and that's what they're looking for, and that's what I push back, because what is coming is literally unprecedented. What is coming is the Great Deception, and millions of people will believe a lie. And I'm not making this up. Prophecy states it. God sends them strong delusion because they did not believe the truth. What is the truth? That Jesus spoke everything into existence. A lot of people don't like to hear that. They think it's a very narrow-minded approach to things. That's the biblical prophetic narrative. We're talking about the God, the real one, who spoke everything into existence, and that's incredible.
Well, yeah, and I also say that, of course, or remind people that it says he holds all things together by the power of his word. God's spoken word is so powerful, it will literally create something out of nothing. I mean, it's a power that we can't even imagine. And I still don't know how anyone can look at the diversity of Earth. Can I use that word, diversity? The refinements of organisms and what they do, and the variety that's on this planet, like it just sprang up. Nobody's told me how in the primordial soup, how the plants crawled out on one side and something else crawled out on the other, but it crawled out with all the information to turn itself into billions of different creatures or billions of different plants. Nobody's explained that to me. I'm waiting to see. In fact, I've never, in that tree chart, man to monkey or whatever, I've never seen that before the monkey. What was it? Was it one of these guys with the heads?
Well, and that's what's incredible. The whole Darwinian evolution thing. They show us this chimpanzee, and he's kind of knuckle dragging, and all of a sudden he just decides to stand up one day.
Yeah.
Well, let me ask you something. Why isn't it that there's not one chimpanzee in the zoo that decides to stand up? We don't see that. And that's everything reproduces according to its kind. Darwin had no idea about the DNA molecular structure, the double helix of life. He had no idea. Otherwise, he probably would have rescinded his ridiculous theory. Because the DNA is a complex coding system. And when you get two hummingbirds that mate, you don't get a penguin. You get two hummingbirds. And you can do this forever. And you're going to get what you're going to get. There might be slight modifications, but you're going to get a hummingbird, not going to get a humpback whale.
Well, I know one thing. The orangutans probably like to hang out in San Francisco, but I'm going to leave that there. Oh boy, I gotta watch it, LA. Sometimes I just let loose on the program, man. You know, so
okay.
Anyway, so we'll leave that there. But anyway, man, the true legends. What a cast of people that bring in information, the variety. You talk about knowledge is the key to understanding, and without knowledge, my people are destroyed. Thus saith the Lord. So, man, each person has their what they're bringing, their knowledge and their research. But from what I see, there's a complement of each single piece of that. And that's wonderful. That's a wonderful thing.
Yeah, but the True Legends Conference is going to be absolutely incredible. In some ways, it may be sort of the apex of all UFO research, because what's happening is we're getting a lot of different concepts, a lot of different paradigms, a lot of different beliefs thrown up against the wall. And people who are there can look at the information and then decide what they want to believe or not believe or toss out. I'll be presenting for at least an hour and a half, possibly close to 2 hours. And I believe that this is all interdimensional, that what we're looking at are entities that are interdimensional entities, not from some planet out there. I also believe in a holographic universe. I believe that this whole thing is in some way some kind of holograph, which is why, once again, going back to the biblical prophetic narrative, where it states that God rolls the entire universe up like a scroll. Now, what the heck is that? Is that literal, or is that just, some sort of fabrication? But yeah, I mean, you look at the lineup: it's Quayle, Alberino, yours truly, Chase Klotsky, Hugo de Garis will be there. George Knapp will be there. So there's a lot of people that I really want to, Knapp in particular, with Bob Lazar's stuff. I followed Lazar right from the beginning and always believed he was credible. In fact, I met him in, I think, 96 or 97, somewhere in that, might have been a little earlier, and met him at the Little Alien Inn in Rachel, Nevada, and had a sit down with him. I didn't film him. I didn't have a camera then. Wasn't doing what I'm doing now, but I, was very interested. In fact, I hadn't even written a book then. So this goes way back, but I've always believed in Lazar and what he said. So it'll be very interesting to see. Well, I know Alberino's going to bring some good stuff. Again, I've got never before seen footage from people that have sent me their experiences or their videos, their DVDs, whatever, photographs with the whole UFO phenomenon. So I'll be presenting that along with other stuff. And frankly, I mean, that's my wheelhouse, as you know, and I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah. A lot of times what I take away from your research, LA, is that this world is much more diverse, I mean, in a spiritual and dimensional standpoint than what we see or feel. And I know that a large segment of society can breeze through life and never know any of this, maybe never experience any supernatural event. And to me, what a boring life that is. I think that there is a life. You go your normal life, say you go your Walmart, your gas station, but you know what? If you train yourself, if you think supernaturally, then you start to see what I call, and a lot of people call, coincidences or synchronicities or, various things going on. I believe there's supernatural events going on in the most boring of places, because all the Nephilim and all the demons and all the spirits don't go away just because there's a Walmart there. I mean, I'm sure anybody's went to somewhere and saw and said, and their super sense said, that's a demon right there, black eyes or a feeling, your hair stands the back of your neck. I think God designed into us the ability to make that perception.
The supernatural world is more real, in my opinion, than the natural world. And, we've got, shameless plug, but we've got like three films that we did so far in the On the Trail of a Nephilim series, and all about the Mounds. Well, the third one, Secrets of the Supernatural, Voices from the Other Side. And this film, in the film, we actually show encounters. We have people that come on the record and tell their story of what happened. One of the more chilling ones is by a pastor who was pastoring a Lutheran church in Newark, Ohio. Now, Newark, Ohio is the place where the Great Circle Mound, the Octagon Mound is, and these are highly charged sites. In other words, if they are Nephilim sites, like we believe they are, then they're highly charged. Rituals have been done there. And if that's the case, what should we see? Well, guess what? When we're there, and this pastor had a church there and was a pastor there, and when he applied for the job as a pastor, because the other pastor was leaving, was getting old and was retiring, the board asked him, do you believe in deliverance? And he hadn't dealt with deliverance, didn't know really what it was, and so they hired him anyway. And this guy was given a crash course. And I've talked to Pastor Olson. He's a great guy. And in the film, he talks about the experiences that he had with the Mounds. And we talk about it in the film. And Wesley San Giorgi does a brilliant job in bringing some of this to life with computer-generated imagery. But there was one house that had a crawl space, okay? The house was built on one of these smaller mounds, or right next to it. And when you'd open up the door to the crawl space, it'd be a crawl space. Other times you'd open the door, it would be a bottomless pit. And the people in the house would throw things down to see, what is this? And it would never touch bottom. That's not a good thing. That's terrifying to see something like that. Yeah, absolutely terrifying. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. The whole film delves into the supernatural implications of the Mounds. I think one of the more startling and cogent examples is when the Mayan elders show up there in 2011 with the 13 crystal skulls. What the heck are the Mayan elders doing there? Why would they come all this way to come to the Great Serpent Mound and the Great Circle Mound? The Serpent Mound is the largest serpent effigy on the planet. And its mouth is open like this, in my opinion, in the act of swallowing an egg, which brings us back to Genesis 3:15. The offspring of the serpent will be at war, at enmity with the offspring of the woman. So the serpent, the iconography in the earth at the Great Serpent Mound, the mouth is wide open, and in front of it is an egg. It's an egg-shaped thing, and the mouth, that serpent is going to destroy that egg. So the prophecy won't come true. We all know the prophecy did come true. And the one who would crush the serpent's head was born, the Messiah, Jesus, the anointed one. So what's amazing about this, the Mayan elders are there. They're performing rituals on these sites with the 13 crystal skulls. And we get into this in the film, Secrets of the Supernatural Voices from the Other Side. So, I mean, it's astounding. I mean, when I went there, I knew I was getting into something as far as the supernatural stuff, but man, I had no idea we were going to get what we got and what's actually in the film. And it's pretty powerful, pretty powerful.
Yeah, it is. And I think you did an amazing job proving that, it's sort of like, Gettysburg battlefield or haunted houses. There, such a tremendous event happened there that it impressed into a geographical area, or maybe created a doorway or a portal, a thin place that allows entities to move about and to manifest on this side in LA. I think you definitively answered that question. Is there residual activity from long past pagan and idolatrous and witchcraft type events that you literally prove in that film? Yeah, it's happening and it's real.
Yeah, what's interesting is it'd be very, I would love to have an archaeologist view that film and then tell us that, that they're not Nephilim sites, or it's just one big coincidence, or these people are making stuff up, but they always have answers to everything.
Right.
And the bottom line is
dismissive.
What we discovered there on the Mounds was incredible. I'll just give you one example. And thanks, since you're talking about true legends, Steve Quayle interviewed Henry Gruber a while back, and Steve allowed me to use the audio in the film. And we, thank you, Steve. And of course, Steve is putting on the True Legends Genesis 6 conference in Branson. We'll all be there next weekend, and I'm really looking forward to it. But in that audio from Henry Gruber, and once again, hats off to Wesley San Giorgi, who really brings it to life. He looked at Henry's picture and created a life-size Henry, and then Henry's walking through the Serpent Mound. Well, Henry talks about that he's been on the road for months, and he's been closing gates and praying over a lot of these ancient sites, ancient burial sites in the mounds all throughout the Midwest. And as he's driving home, he sees the Great Serpent Mound, signs for it. So he pulls off and he goes to the Great Serpent Mound. He reads the signage, which talks about giants and everything. This is years ago, before they changed the signage. And so he goes there and he goes up to the head of a serpent and he gets up on the head and he prays over the serpent mound for about 20 minutes, 30 minutes, whatever. And he's renouncing everything that's been done there and consecrates the land of the Lord. As he walks back, he's hit viscerally in his solar plexus. Boom! He's down on the ground. His knees are up on his chest. Now, it's been snowing. There's 3 to 4 inches of fresh snow on the ground. He's got a light jacket on. He falls into the snow. His knees come up to his chest. He can't move. He can't straighten himself out. The pain is excruciating. It's snowing. Guess what? After 3 to 5 minutes, he realizes that he's freezing to death. He's starting to freeze to death. He wants to go to sleep because there's snow that's falling on him. He's in the snow. It's not a good scenario. At this point, and this is all in the film, he begins to pray to the Lord, and the Lord answers him and says, Henry, I didn't call you to come here. And, you shouldn't have come here. I didn't tell you to come here. I will release you, but don't come back until you're strong and until I tell you to come back here. So Henry is released because the sovereign God has power over the wiles of the enemy, over the dragon. And Henry's released and he goes back into his van, turns on the heater, and gets under a beaver skin blanket and gets, got all that cold out and then drives home. The bottom line is we were at the Serpent Mound in the spring equinox of 2018. And there was a coven of witches there. Now, the park was closed, but you could still go there. They know what the Serpent Mound's about. The Mayan elders know what the Serpent Mound's about. And that's why they're there. That's why, and in the film, we show the Mayan elders chanting. And it's like this. It's chilling to hear. It's bizarre. And it just goes on continually. They are opening up the gate. They're opening up the gateway, opening up the portal. Allow the fallen ones to come back in. Again, these are highly charged sites, and we prove it in our film. I mean, we're not making this stuff up. This isn't Ghostbusters on the channel. This is the real deal. This is the real deal. And what's one of the things that are amazing when we're in this woods, we went to this one place called Geller Hill. And Geller Hill was an area that Fritz Zimmerman, who's in all 3 films, and Fritz wrote this incredible book, The Nephilim Chronicles, Fallen Angels in the Ohio Valley, which served as the primer, my primer, which opened my eyes to all of this. And then we brought Fritz in and used Fritz for, expert consultation and all that kind of stuff. So Fritz is our go-to guy. He's written 2 books on this. But, since Fritz's research, we've been the places that Fritz hasn't, and we've expanded that. So Fritz took us to Geller Hill. Geller Hill is the highest place in Newark, Ohio. Newark, Ohio has the Great Circle Mound, the largest circle mound in the Americas. The Octagon Mound, which is over 50 acres. You could put the basis of a Great Pyramid in this thing. And Geller Hill. Geller Hill is the highest place. And Fritz believed from his research that at one time it was a Nephilim burial site. There were giants that were buried there. So we go there and Fritz says, hey, would you mind if the Newark Paranormal Group comes with us? I said, no. And I had no idea what the Newark Paranormal Group was going to do. So we get to Geller Hill, it's raining, and we can't film, we can't fly the drone, it's like a misty rain. So there's a forest like right next to the hill. On top of the hill, we go in, it's a manicured forest, nice path. And this woman from the Newark Paranormal Group has a machine called an obelisk. And she turns on this obelisk, and about 20, 30 seconds go by, and we hear the word evil and see it on the obelisk. I go, whoa, what's that? So we walk down into the woods about 50 feet, and the machine goes off again and says, witch. So I'm going like, okay, wow. I know what this is. This is modern day necromancy. This is like working a high-tech Ouija board. I immediately take authority over it in the name of Jesus, not my own authority, and I begin to pray against it. And I cancel the assignment of this entity that's accessing this box. So she turns it off, and I tell her to turn it off. She turns it off, and waits about 20 or 30 seconds. And I say, okay, turn it back on. She turns it back on, and all this is on film, live on film. The obelisk has 5,000 words in it. So she can't manipulate it to say something. It's got 5,000 words in it. When she turns it off and turns it back on after I prayed, the word holy comes up. And her mouth drops open. She goes like this. She can't even believe it. They've never seen anything like this. So again, secrets of the supernatural, voices from the other side. This isn't like Ghostbusters. I would never do this type of a thing deliberately again, but we didn't know what we were getting into. You know, I didn't know what these machines did, and I found it quite fascinating.
Wow.
I think you can see her picture. It's like right there. There's her face.
Yeah. she looks like she's in shock.
She's completely in shock, and all of this is on film. So, you know, Secrets of a Supernatural, Voices from the Other Side really dives into the fact that what we're looking at here are the fingerprints of the supernatural. There's another dynamic that I want to bring up. And if there's any astronomers out there, shoot me an email, la@lamarzulli.net, la@lamarzulli.net. These sites, the American Stonehenge, the Great Circle Mound, the Octagon Mound, the Serpent Mound, they are all built on an 18.5-year lunar cycle. Here's the rub. 5,000 years ago, or 3,500 years ago, when many of these sites were constructed, like the American Stonehenge in New Hampshire, about 4,000-year-old site. The Great Circle Mound, depending on who you talk to, 2,500 years ago, 3,000 years ago, you know, dates will differ. Same thing with the Serpent Mound. Some people place it old, other archaeologists place it newer. So we don't know. I believe these sites are ancient, well over 2,000 years old, all these sites. But they're built on an 18.5-year lunar cycle. So here's the deal. That means that every 18.5 years, the moon goes back to the beginning and does this very complex dance of rising and setting for 18.5 years. It's different. Wow. So let's say you and I, Daniel, we're gonna go out. We're gonna plot the moon. We go, okay, that sounds really great, Ellen. So we go out and we look at the moon, and we go, well, there it is, and we figure out where it rises and where it sets. Fact number one: how do we record that? So buffalo skin, deer hide, make notches on sticks. How do we do this? And if the sticks move, then the notches won't work. So at night 2 we come out and we see that the moon is in a slightly different place, and we watch it, the rising and the waxing and waning of the moon. We see all this, okay? So we do this for about a month, and things are going pretty good, and we're getting some data. All of a sudden, a storm comes in, it rains for 3 or 4 days, the clouds block out the moon, we can't see it. So now we've lost 4 days of data. But here's the rub. Not knowing where we are, we just jumped in. Are we in year 3, year 12, year 9, year 1 of a lunar cycle? We have no idea. And then you combine the fact, how do you take the data and process it so you know, oh wait, look, we're back at the beginning. It took 18.5 years. Oh, I remember this one. How would you know? The Book of Enoch, which is found in the Dead Sea Scrolls and quoted many times in the Tanakh, and in fact in our New Testament also, the Book of Jude. The Book of Enoch states that a fallen angel, Sariel, taught mankind before the flood the lunar calendar, and the precession of the moon. In other words, the knowledge was handed to us. And I have yet to find an astronomer to tell me how the ancients did this, how they discovered it, how they knew. Remember, it's one thing over in Europe when you've got telescopes and you've got writing utensils and you've got ways of looking at the data and compiling the data and figuring it out. It's another thing if you're in the Americas 3,000 years ago, there are no pens and pencils, there are no telescopes, there's nothing like this. And Native Americans have no knowledge of this at all. Nothing. Why would, if they knew, if Native Americans discovered this, and this is not to disparage them, because they just didn't know. That doesn't mean they're less human or less smart than the Europeans were. It doesn't mean any of that. People discover different things. That's okay. They did what they did, but they didn't travel in this. They didn't travel in trigonometry. These mounds were built with trigonometry before the Europeans had trigonometry, for crying out loud. So where's it coming from?
Well, I know the math didn't.
Who's really creating?
I know the math didn't come from Islam like they think. But you did mention the Book of Enoch. So this question came in for you from Kevin. He says, L.A., why do you suppose Christians have such a problem with the teachings of First Enoch and its biblical validity? I understand maybe the second or third being suspect, not being the First Enoch.
Yeah, I mean, First Enoch, I think, should be a required reading of every Bible-believing student. Enoch went in and out of Scripture. The fact that Jude quotes it lets us know that he read it. I mean, in order to quote it, you've got to at least read it.
Yeah.
Jesus never really mentions it, right?
Right.
Jesus never mentions it. So, we can argue about it. The bottom line is, okay, it's not part of our canon, but we can appreciate its historicity. Just like if I read a book about the Civil War, I can appreciate that someone did the research and wrote it. Well, Enoch is telling us, and when you read it, it's Genesis 6, but just amplified. That's all it is. It's Genesis 6 and it's amplified, and it just tells us, oh my gosh, the sons of God were the fallen angels. That's who they were. So there's no more tap dancing around who the sons of God are. They're not the godly line of Seth, and the women of earth aren't the hoochie mamas of Cain. That's not what we're looking at here. And the Book of Enoch makes it really clear. If you were going to take one book, if you were going to make sure that people didn't read it, that's the book you'd go for. You know why? Because it shows us, Genesis 3:15, exactly what the whole end game is. It tells you everything. And you know something? The Book of Enoch was lost in the Western world until R.H. Charles found the copy in the Ethiopian Bible. And Enoch 1 in the Ethiopian Bible precedes the Genesis account.
Wow.
Go figure.
Wow. Well, I never did like the Council of Trent. I didn't like their conclusions either. But with these elongated skull type creatures, now when the alien invasion or return comes, is it likely they're going to have elongated skulls, LA?
That's speculation. I have no idea what they're going to look like. I mean, nor does anyone else. The Greys, in my opinion, you showed one earlier. I believe they're avatars. I believe that they're avatars. They're genetically constructed, to allow the spirit of the Nephilim or demons to go into them, so they animate them. That's why they look like what they look.
So
that's conjecture.
So we put a poll up on the Edge. It rotates about every week or so, week and a half or so. We have a new poll question. This week's poll question on the Edge's website, LA, is what alien species do you believe will return and attack the Earth? Of course, it has the reptilians, the Anunnaki, the Greys, insectoids. That's my favorite. But at the bottom of that poll is the Democrapians. And right now, the Democrapians are winning the invasion of the Earth. I didn't even know that was a species. I put it up. Evidently, people believe that's some sort of alien species. I'm kind of believing it is.
Let me weigh in on this, folks. If any of these clowns that are running on a Democratic ticket get in, the America that we know and love will cease to exist, and I mean that. We will have bigger government, higher taxes, abortion on demand. Anyone who opposes them, like you or myself, Daniel, will be considered just like Hillary Clinton, which is what she lost. Not only will be deplorable, but they may legislate things against us. The fact that Google and YouTube and everybody else is already manipulating everything is incredibly severe, in my opinion. These people have nothing to offer except socialism, higher taxes, abortion on demand, and more bigger government and control. If that's what we want, and transgender and gay rights everywhere. Teach your kid. Bring a drag queen in for first grade and show your kid what a drag queen is, and have a drag queen read. But God forbid we have a pastor come in and tell the kids about the Ten Commandments. That's how wacky this place is. And I got to tell you, Daniel, if somebody gets in and starts rounding up the guns and starts doing, there'll be a civil war in this country. Because, and I pray to God there isn't, but the bottom line is, there are millions of people like you and me that have had it with this nonsense. How dare Hollywood lecture me about my gun rights, my Second Amendment rights, when it puts out absolute crapola like it too, with the bloodthirsty clown, and that's scaring the little kids so badly that they have nightmares over it. Just looking at the billboard. How dare they lecture me when they create movies like The Matrix and the body count in Arnold Schwarzenegger movies is through the flipping roof. How dare they lecture me when all they do is promulgate violence and violence and violence. Give me a flipping break.
Well, right.
And all one needs to do is look at what's going on in Hong Kong right now with the Chinese. Those people in Hong Kong, they don't have any guns, okay? They can't fight back. And that's why we have the Second Amendment. Never forget it.
Well, along those lines, you talk about movies. That movie that was nearly released called The Hunt. Are you familiar with that? Yeah.
Yes, I am.
Where
Yes,
deplorables,
there you go.
Where deplorables end up in a field and then they get hunted. That was just emblematic of what they're going to do. People don't understand the depth of depravity. You know, Steve Quayle, you mentioned him earlier. He's one of the first to say that when you see cannibalism come back, that either there's going to be a major cataclysmic event, a civil war, Antichrist rising on the scene or something. But there's a professor in Sweden saying that cannibalism is the way to reduce global warming. Now, he's just one day ahead of the Democrats in this country. They haven't said it, and people may not believe it. But how could you not believe they would resort to cannibalism if they already will say that taking a baby out of a womb, laying it on the table, and then have a doctor and a woman walk around it like ancient druids deciding if that baby's going to live? That's real. That's where we are. So cannibalism, Planned Parenthood was putting baby parts up on eBay. So the cannibalism is right there. That returns us way back to where the ancients were deeply involved in cannibalism as well.
This is just like the days of Noah, and this is why the church needs to stand up and push back like crazy. Because if they get in, the America that we know will no longer be the America that we know. It'll be something else, and it's already there. You know, with just look at California. California was at one time the Golden State. People rushed there. Now more people are leaving California. And I love California. Don't misunderstand me. I love the climate. I loved where I used to live before the fire. And I hope to rebuild there at some point in the near future. We'll see what happens. I hate the politics. They've destroyed that state. And all one needs to do, people talk about gun control. Isn't it amazing how they'll take some nutcase that goes off the rails, but they never tell us, is he on medication? Is he on psychotropic drugs that he's taking for depression or whatever? Meanwhile, in Chicago, gun-controlled Chicago, there were just as many killings last weekend as there were, God forbid, in the killing in Texas. But we don't hear doodly squat about that, do we? It's a managed agenda. And the fact that YouTube is taking people like you and myself off is alarming. The fact that the media never has anything, no matter what our president does or says, no matter what he does, they always find fault. I've never seen anything like it. And the fact that Comey and Brennan and Clapper and Strzok and Page and the whole crew, which participated in a soft coup, allegedly a soft coup, in my opinion, that is alarming. And as Trump said, that should never, ever happen to another president ever again in this country. But it was there, and they need to find out what's going on.
Well, and I know we just kind of delved in a little bit of politics, but it's going to be the politicians that put out these laws that's going to cause a roundup. It's politicians that are going to disarm Americans, and alien invasion or not, I agree with you there. It's not going to happen. I don't think they understand. It took a ragtag, a bunch of guys in the Continental Army that defeated the most trained, highly equipped army in the world. And that ragtag army is out in the countryside right now, and they will be vastly underestimated should they decide to do that. But in conjunction with some sort of alien revelation, disclosure, contact, there's going to be a political ramification on a large scale as to whether they say, well, we have disagreeables out there that's stopping our agreements, who are trying to better the world. And of course, we know who the deplorables are, the troublemakers are. It's not the tree hugging. By the way, LA, in Florida, all the liberals down there didn't run and buy solar generators and windmills and wind generators. They went and bought gasoline and gasoline generators. I noticed they went and did that instead of, and they got 4-wheel drives instead of Priuses. I'm just saying.
Yeah, I wonder why they did that. I mean, why didn't they go green? Go green. Bernie Sanders is the most dangerous man in America because he's actually got a percentage of people. Elizabeth Warren. How would anyone vote for Pocahontas, who lied and continued until the DNA finally came back? And, she's like, I'm as much of a Cherokee as she is, for crying out loud. How could anyone vote for somebody like us? The fact that these people are even running shows you how dumbed down the American people are.
Well,
and,
LA,
I find it incredibly alarming.
Well, LA, you've conversed with Chief Joseph, right?
Yeah.
Has he ever made a comment about Pocahontas?
No, we've never talked about Pocahontas at all that way. I should probably call and just and find out what his take is. But I mean the fact that she's in the polls, the fact that Biden, I mean, they have nothing. They offer nothing. They have no ideas except bigger taxes, legislate us into oblivion, control, kill all the babies they possibly can, bring in as many illegals. Oh, get rid of the what's it called? Oh, electoral college.
Oh yeah.
Make sure, yeah. The founding fathers were stupid. That's why we have the electrical college, because they're really stupid. That's what makes it work. That's what makes our system work. Otherwise, you would just go to New York and Los Angeles, and there's 40 million, well, actually more than that. There's like 50 million people between those cities alone. There's your election right there. Done. And everybody in the middle would never have any chance.
Well, we're talking about cannibalism and depopulation. Bernie Sanders just said on a CNN roundtable that he's for depopulation. He said the Earth cannot sustain the amount of people that's on it. Of course, we all know about the Georgia Guidestones. They're telling us they want to depopulate, and it's not them. They're going to depopulate. It's kind of ironic, though, because you mentioned abortion and all that. It seems to me more on that side are performing abortions on their self. Wouldn't you think eventually, wouldn't it depopulate them and normal people would continue to populate? I don't know. I'm looking at the math there.
You know what, Daniel, it's Jesus warns us of all these things that'll happen before his return. We are in the window that's unprecedented. And I'll talk about some of this, at True Legends, because 1.5 billion abortions has changed the supernatural, the spiritual atmosphere on this planet. And to give you an idea of 1.5 billion people, if you were to walk from the North Pole down Nome, Alaska, down the west coast of Canada, cut over to Niagara Falls, and just zigzag your way down through Mexico and Central America, down all through South America till Tierra del Fuego, you wouldn't see one person, Daniel. That's what 1.5 billion people looks like. You wouldn't see one person.
I was listening to Dave Hodges. The other day, and he was talking about depopulation as well, and suggesting that there's a debate going on in Japan and probably the Council of Worlds whether or not to actually release the radiation in Fukushima that's being contained, because once they do, that would depopulate the Earth. And along with chemtrails and GMOs and everything else, do you think there is a plan afoot, LA, to depopulate the Earth?
Well, that's been run up the flagpole. You mentioned the Georgia Guidestones. I actually filmed there, and I've been sort of a student of them and who R.C. Christian really was, and where it's. There's a film, I forget who did it, a couple of Christian filmmakers, but they did a great job, and they discovered who R.C. Christian was, which was fascinating. And these guys were Rosicrucians, and this is what they erected, and they want to see an Earth which has 500 million people. So that's 6.5 billion people have to go someplace. And I think it's an agenda. I think it's that's why the whole idea of abortion. That's why in China the one-child policy and all this stuff. Look, nothing is working, Daniel. We're in a place where you can't fix this anymore, is what I mean. You can't fix it. We've literally been given a reprieve with Donald Trump, in my opinion, where just think, if Hillary had gotten in, and she's a witch, and I mean that with all due respect, she is literally a practicing Wicca. She's a witch. That's what she is. And she's sold off, in my opinion, allegedly, to the dark side. And I think it's very deliberate. There's a shot of her at the 2016 election. Madonna is behind her. This is very deliberate. Madonna's there with her legs open like this, and Hillary is right in front of her. Oh. Are you kidding me?
Oh.
That is so deliberate, it's unbelievable. So totally deliberate. No woman sits like that.
Wow.
No woman sits like that.
Well,
Madonna, her legs wide open, and there's Hillary. They're both facing the audience. Hillary's right there. Okay. right where her vagina would be. And
okay. How am I supposed to unsee that?
Huh?
How am I supposed to unsee that?
Well, that's the deal. You're not. And it's good that you do see it, because it lets us know how far down the rabbit hole we are. Because if you go back 50 years and something like that, people would have pushed back and screamed all get out. No one batted a flipping eyelash, Daniel. No one said anything. And that's part of the problem. Where's the outrage? I've got it. I know you've got it. There's other people who haven't. Where's the outrage at this kind of nonsense? How can she get away with it?
Sounds like Hillary's going to go down the hole. That's all I know. Man, she's a weird dude. And then, of course, you've got Michael Obama. Man, there's a lot of weird stuff going on out there. It couldn't be more true where the Bible says they'll call evil good and good evil than we have today. So let's getting back to the mounds and the supernatural aspect of it. There seems to be in this country. I thought I read that paganism, witchcraft is exceeding Christianity. I mean, the numbers are exponentially increasing of people who are dabbling in the dark side. Let me ask you, in researching all the places you've been, is there any hieroglyphs or any kind of messages that you've been able to decipher, or a story somebody's told of what the future of the earth says is going to be?
Well, I mean, the future of earth is written in the Book of Revelation, and we know that the Antichrist rises up. We know from Jesus that'll be like the days of Noah. And in the days of Noah, there was a full-blown occult paradigm that was in operation. The Nephilim were on the earth in those days. And I think the whole UFO paradigm is in essence the return of a Nephilim, although slightly different. Daniel talks about their seed will mingle with the seed of men, but they shall not cleave to them. So whose seed are we talking about? Their seed will mingle with the seed of men. Well, it can't be the seed of men, because otherwise it wouldn't make any sense. It's something else. And it falls back into the Genesis 3:15, Genesis 6 paradigm with the fallen angels coming down, having sex with the women, creating a hybrid being known as the Nephilim. And that's where we are today. That's where we are today. We see chimeras that are being manipulated. We see the genes of human beings being mixed with the animal kingdom. Those are chimeras. That's what happened in the days of Noah. That's what's happening again right now in modernity. 150 years ago, that was, a pipe dream. No one could possibly imagine it. We'd all look, Greek mythos, minotaurs, centaurs, that's just all mythos. That never really happened. Now, in modernity, all this stuff is a reality. Who knows what they're doing?
With the examination of the snake mounds, you literally prove that there is doorways, there are openings here on Earth, and the Bible talks about things coming up from the abyss. I'm wondering, you mentioned the crystal skulls in the first hour. Are they trying to conjure a door open to release something? I mean, the Bible says that they were as scorpions coming up from the smoke of the inner earth. Are they trying to release something?
They are. Look, Hunback's men, he passed away several years ago. Hunback's men is a shaman. He's an occult adept. He knows exactly what he's doing. That's why they're going to these sites. He's all about the Kundalini serpent power. That's what he's all about. I read his book. And it's alarming. They know what those sites were there for. and they knew what they could do on those sites, which is why they trekked all the way up from South America, for crying out loud, with the 13 crystal skulls to perform ceremonies in full regalia on those sites, opening the gateways, opening the portals. And that's what these sites were, in my opinion.
But I thought I heard there's a legend that said when 13 skulls were discovered, the end of time. Is that a different legend, or are these different skulls?
No. These are, those legends have been bandied around, and who knows what, where they're from or the sources, and they're really hard to track down. But if we are in a window of time where we are rapidly, heading towards the return of Jesus, the second coming, okay, and that changes everything, because it finally puts down the system that has been burdensome for mankind for thousands and thousands of years. So I believe that we're in the window of time where we're going to see that. I'm not a date setter, and I don't know, but I think we're rushing towards that area,
right?
That moment in time.
Well, see, that's it. Of course, Art Bell referred to that as the quickening, and I kind of understand that the amount of information coming out. I mean, that snake mound's been over there forever, and I've never heard anybody go there and do what you did with your film crew and capture the things that you have. And I'm sure you have a lot more material like that, and then you're going to produce some more as you travel around. But it just seems that there is a revelation, like an unmasking of something to show the real depth. It's interesting about, and I don't want to stay on the political side of it, but every time the Democrats go after Trump, supernaturally, something fires right back at him. Some revelation is revealed, some dark, deep secret, whatever they're accusing him of, they're exposed for it. So there seems to be this exposing, this unmasking. Is any of this, you think, all the information, and talking about Branson and all the speakers and all this massive amount of information, is it any part of the book of Daniel where it says seal up the things at the end in the book? Is this part of the book opening?
Absolutely. Mankind will run to and fro over the face of the earth, and knowledge will increase. That's exactly where we are. Mankind will run to and fro over the face of the earth. That didn't happen 2,000 years ago. And knowledge will increase. It now increases exponentially. Every 6 months, it just goes through the roof. That's where we are. And so we've got all this knowledge, and yet just look at the 6 o'clock news. So have we evolved? Really? Yeah, we have little gadgets. We can do all this stuff, but the heart of man is deceitfully wicked. Who will know it? And I have to watch, like Johnny Cash's song, I keep a close watch on this heart of mine. Have to take every thought accountable as a Christian, because, not only does my flesh do and think nutty things, but the enemy will come in. So I'm constantly like, offense, defensive position at the same time. So yeah, I think we're in a window of time which the Bible speaks about more than any other time, the time of Jacob's trouble, the 7-year tribulation period. We're not in that yet, but we're moving very rapidly towards it. And if you get UFO disclosure, and we've already, and I'll talk about this, we're already on the second rung of the UFO disclosure ladder. I don't know how many rungs there are, but the first rung was Commander David Fravor in his F-18. That's the shot right there. That's from David Fravor in his F-18, which was shown on Tucker Carlson. The second rung on the ladder. And between Fravor and the second rung, he had Nick Pope on and other people talking about the so-called extraterrestrial presence. But the second rung goes to Luis Elizondo. When Tucker Carlson says, Mr. Elizondo, in your opinion, does the United States government have wreckage from a crashed UFO? Elizondo looks right at the camera and says, yes. Tucker redirects the question and says, are you saying that the United States government has debris from a UFO? And Elizondo goes, yes, once again. Makes this big deal about not violating his non-disclosure agreement. If that's the case, he would have just said, I cannot confirm or deny that question, Tucker. He looks right at the camera and says, yes, that's the second rung of a disclosure ladder. I'll be talking about that at the True Legends Conference next weekend.
You mentioned in the first hour how that some of this information, well, I guess probably for Christianity's last 40, 50 years, all of it has been dismissive. UFOs have been dismissed as demons. Bigfoot's been dismissed as demons. The chupacabra's been, ghost been, everything has been sort of dismissed, and that's why what created was a giant void of information in the Christian world to answer these type of questions. And I noticed in Branson, it's called answering the alien question. Why is the question need to be answered? Because it's never been answered in the church. They just dismiss it, and it's one of the biggest things that affect the entirety of mankind. It fulfills prophecy. It has all these prophecies around it. You think we might want to know something about it?
Well, and this is part of the problem. This is why we've lost the youth. This is why our youth watches Ancient Aliens every Friday, and that's where they're getting their theology from Ancient Aliens. Ancient astronaut theorists say this. And after 5 or 10 years, that's been on for like 10 years now, it has taken a whole segment of the population and steered them in one direction. And frankly, I push back against it constantly with my films, my appearances, and what I can do as one person. This is the coming great deception. The revealing of the so-called UFO phenomenon, or the UFO extraterrestrial presence, is the coming great deception. And again, I'll be talking about this at the True Legends Conference in Branson next weekend.
Now, I notice in that particular scripture, it says, if it were possible, even the very elect would be deceived. Is it possible?
No, because you got people like me and you who are talking about this openly and warning those who will listen of what this is. And everywhere I go, when I'm in front of an audience and I'm talking about this, I say, you will not be deceived. You will not be deceived because you've heard this information. You will now know what it is you're looking at. I have a woman that emailed me. She lives in an undisclosed location near a great body of water. So that could be anywhere, right?
Okay.
But she's up in the mountains overlooking the ocean, and she's out there, and she sent me the shots of 5 UFOs. They're light, and 2 of them are like this with light going between them.
Wow.
And we have it on film. Well, and I'll show that at Branson. It's not, it's just like, it's a 2-second shot like this, but you can see that there's energy moving between the 2 craft. She was freaked out by what she'd seen. She's a Christian, but she can't get her head around what she's seeing. So we sent her my book, UFO Disclosure. And I said, I told her what this was. And we sent her to the book. And the reason why we did that, you need to understand what you're looking at. She's been in church all of her life. They've never addressed it. She has one experience, and she's up at night trying to process it. That's why I do what I do.
Well, I mean, one of the lessons can be learned if the Democrats get in power and they say, hey, we got a nice holiday camp for you. We call it FEMA. You can go there and you can fish and hunt, and it's called a FEMA camp. I would suggest that you don't go. I mean, to me, that's one of the deception things that you've learned. No, the FEMA camp's not going to be an exciting place. But if I ever get stuck in one in LA, at least I want one with a view. You know what I'm saying? But I've always said this: you might not be able to change something, but it's better to know about it than be a slave, because you will be a slave if you don't have knowledge.
That's right.
Just saying.
That's right, and that's why shows like yours are very important, because you can bring a variety of people and discuss the issues. And it's funny, what we're talking about used to be considered fringe. Now it's on Tucker Carlson. So we should take note.
Tell me about Acceleration Radio.
Well, that's my weekly radio show. I do it here live in the studio. You can see the studio in the background, part of it. And we film it here live, and we do. So it's a twofer. I'm on Skype, KGRA, and I'm broadcasting live on the airwaves. But I'm also filming it with my cameras in the studio. The next day, I take it, throw it in Final Cut Pro, and it goes up on YouTube. In fact, I posted today Thursday show up on my YouTube channel, L.A. Marzulli. So that's a little bit about Acceleration Radio. But we cover all sorts of things you can see in the background. The elongated skulls, the pyramids, all that, and that's what we're known for.
So, how do people get to that show?
Just go to KGRA. If you Google KGRA, you can see that I'm up on Thursday nights, 6 o'clock Eastern, prime time, and it's great to be there. My producer is Ray Hobbs. He does a great job, and we're about to go video All of KGRA is about to go video very, very soon. So not only we have YouTube, but all my stuff is going to be on KGRA fairly quickly, I hope. So we'll see. I'm excited about that.
So personally, let's get a little personal here. Obviously, you were in California and your house burnt down due to the raging fire over there, which some say was set. How's all the transition worked for you? What has new doors opened for you? Have doors closed? Have lives been harder? What's your kind of, I don't know, if your takeaway of the whole thing? I imagine you thought about it quite a bit.
Oh yeah, it's people have no idea. We've lost everything. We were in Dallas at John B. Wells's conference. I was speaking there, so we knew on Saturday by 12 o'clock that we had lost everything. I had to go up and speak at 3, and I did. And I looked at the audience and I said, we've just lost everything. Our house, all our possessions, our studio, everything, our cars, everything's gone. But I do know this, that the Lord will bring good out of it, because that's what he does. And that's what the Lord has done, essentially. We're in a beautiful home in Oklahoma, and we're very grateful to be here. And I just want to thank those of you who are listening that contributed. That's why we're here. But I'm homesick. I don't mind saying that. People will think I'm crazy to move back to California. But I spent 40 years on that property. And the Lord gave that property to me 40 years ago. Wow. And he never released me from it, ever. And when I was back in May, I was there, and by myself. Peggy had gone with our daughter, and we had architects there and lawyers there because we're in a class action suit. The people that were scraping from FEMA were there, scraping all the dirt and the debris and all that stuff. And so there was a whole list of appointments. So it was now 4:30 in the afternoon, and I was up on what used to be our upper deck, which looked down the canyon 2 miles, and there's the ocean. So, put a price on that. And that was my favorite place to be. Wow. There's no houses in front of that, even before the fire. There was one house way, way away. That was it. So it was like just wild, beautiful, pristine country. And there's the ocean down below. And the Lord, 39 years before that, I had a house on the market, my first and only spec house. And I was 3 months behind in the rent. Jimmy Carter was president. Interest rates were 21%. It wasn't selling. And so, I had no money. And I'm trying to work off what I owed. This is when I was living in the guest house, which became a studio. And I went to the owner of the house and I said, hey, I'll landscape the place for you. He says, okay, great, because the place was a disaster. So I bought all this dirt and all this river rock, and I was stacking the river rock in circles and making all these planters and stuff on the property. And as I was doing that, the Lord spoke to me 39 years ago and said, you're doing this for yourself. This is yours. Wow. And I said, Lord, how is that possible? And he spoke again. He said, this is yours. 7 years later, by that time, I had met my wife, married her, and we closed escrow on the property. Fast forward to basically 40 years, 40 years, 39 years. And I'm there in May, and I'm up on top side looking down, and it's kind of melancholy. Everything's gone. FEMA scraped everything. There's no vestige that anybody actually lived there, okay? And I wandered down, and that circle of rock is still there, okay? That circle of rock, they didn't scrape that. It's still there. The tree that was in the middle is dead. And the Lord tells me, pick up a rock. And I go, why, Lord? Why do you want me to do this? Just pick up a rock. So I picked this rock up. And the Lord says, that's your promise stone. The land is yours. That's your promise stone. The land is yours. And of course, I immediately started to weep. And
is that the rock?
It's on my desk, and I look at it every day.
That is the rock.
This is the rock right there.
Wow.
That's the promise.
I'll tell you what, I'm looking for a rock, man. I bet everybody started looking for a rock. Hey, doesn't the Bible say that he can make the stones cry out? Are the stones crying out? Said, "L.A., that's yours."
Amen to that. That's so. I was not an architect, but I used to design remodels and draw up houses and all this stuff 30 years ago. So, I had to go through the building department, and I learned how to do all that. And did it professionally. I'd work with an engineer, and they would do the calcs, and then I would take the whatever we were doing and get the permit and go from there. And I did this. So I drew up the house, our house, because I had to keep the same footprint, 1,700 square foot home. And I drew it up, and I'm working with an engineer, a good friend of mine, Dale Kessler. And there's a system called Gigacrete, which is fireproof and is somewhat new, and it's very inexpensive.
Wow.
And that's what we're going to do. We're going to do a Gigacrete house. I drew it up. I can't wait. And we're trying to get a building permit.
What's
So we'll
that
see
called?
what happens with that.
Giga what?
It's called Gigacrete, like concrete, Gigacrete.
Gigacrete. Okay, you're going to make a house
really
out of
revolutionary.
it. Okay. You're going to make a house out of it.
It's a revolutionary system. And when you just Google Gigacrete, it will come up, and you can, peruse the site and see what it is. And that's what we're going to do. And I'm excited about it, Daniel, because I can probably build the house for about a third of what it would cost if I built it in conventional ways. And yet my R factor, it's fireproof, my insulation's better, the whole deal. So, I mean, we're excited about that.
I see in the live chat, somebody said, LA, Blue Girl 65 says, LA, best of luck to you. Man, I tell you, you've been through a lot. The Bible does say to whom much is given, much is required. And what's required of you is that you had to go through the loss of your house. Doesn't mean you're not going to get another one, but you certainly have been through some trials by fire. And I think losing your house is probably one of the most stressful events that could possibly happen to a person.
It's been very strange, but on top of that, my brother lost his beloved wife 34 years to a brain tumor, and she passed away in December. And then in January, my wife's mother, who we were both very close to, was in a hospital. She was about to be released, had a major stroke. We were in Oklahoma looking at the house that we're in now, and we flew basically with the death watch. And, we watched her pass away 3 days later. And then my ex-business partner and close friend and confidant, Richard Shaw, passed away 2 months ago. And he was the co-producer and the director and editor of the Watcher series. So there's been a lot of loss in the last 9 months. And, I'll be honest with you. I've had bouts of depression. I spoke with my good friend Russ Dizdar today for about 30, 40 minutes, and we prayed together. And, it's one day at a time, Daniel, one day at a time. But I'm really looking forward to Branson next week, and that's going to be a real meet and greeting all the people. And, I'll be at my table the whole time. I don't hole up in the hotel room. I'll be at the table pretty much the whole time, and, looking forward to meeting people, talking to people, and it's a lot of fun. So I'm looking forward to it.
Okay. Well, we're getting near the end of the broadcast. If we have any other questions people want to send in, you go ahead. I know that Ellen and I have been talking most of the time, not instead of taking questions, but so you're going to be there in Branson. Now, beyond that, you're in another conference, I understand.
Well, say that again.
Don't you have another
Beyond
conference?
That, what?
Don't you have another conference later after Branson?
Yeah, I go from Branson, and then the following weekend I'm in Alabama at Church of His Presence. And then we go to the Prophecy Watchers Conference in Oklahoma here. And then I speak on Friday. Saturday morning, I get on the early plane, fly to California. Saturday afternoon, I speak at the Hear the Watchman Conference in Irvine. And then we're done. Oh, no, I forgot San Antonio's in between there. Forgive me. So it goes Branson, Church of His Presence, San Antonio Conference, then Prophecy Watchers, then California.
Okay,
so
well,
we're real busy for the next 6 weeks.
Okay, so I got a question, LA. Are you a robot?
Daniel, it's a lot. But one of my favorite things to do is to speak in front of a live audience, and I mean that. I absolutely love speaking live with a room full of people like you're showing right there. It is a hoot and a half, and I can't wait for that.
Okay. Well, I appreciate you coming on the Edge broadcast. Any final thoughts for you before we let you go?
Well, folks, if you don't know the Lord, if you think you know him but you don't know him, then you don't know him. And he came to set the captives free. And you and I were once captives. And if you're listening and you don't know him, you're a captive. You're a captive to yourself and to the stuff that you do. And he came to set you free. And the deal is you believe on him who was sent and believe that he rose again from the dead, and you can have eternal life, and you can know the true God and his son Jesus. So That's, if you get that, you've got everything, in my opinion.
Okay.
Thank you, Daniel. Thank you. Appreciate it. Take care.
All right. Bye-bye. All right, everybody. That was